Rings of Power.
The past is dead. We either move forward or we die with it.
Past is with us all, whether we like it or not.
Make up your mind, dearie. You're giving me mixed signals. Are you trying to appeal to the fans or annoy them? I can't work it out. But we've had lots of strange mixed messages when it comes to Rings of Power. For instance, all of the journalists were trying to pretend that this guy was Sauron, and I think if that symbolised anything, it's that the Rings of Power marketing can't physically get any worse. No, I'm just joking, it got worse.
There are powers beyond darkness that work in this world.
The Rings of Power.
All I'm saying, if it's that Sauron, he's got a couple of bell curves on him that IQ distribution charts to be proud of. Certainly a lot more than Galadriel.
Galadriel.
I have to say though, MMO armor's not what it used to be, is it?
This could be the beginning of a new era.
Yes, the beginning of a new era of Galadriel. The thing is, some people say, how can you judge this show? The show's not out until the 2nd of September. You can't judge it based off the marketing material you've already seen. And it's like, yes, maybe, but the thing is, I'm not. This isn't new, this isn't original, this isn't a character I haven't seen before. I've already seen this story, I've seen these characters for years. It's the same trope, it's the same story repeated in entertainment after entertainment. That's why the marketing's the same, that's why the people's the same, that's why they use the same lines.
She's one-track minded in what she's doing.
Stop and think it through for a minute.
This is all I've been thinking about, Bruce.
She's very fiery.
That is not the sentence to take a pause on, Bruce.
You have not seen what I have seen.
I'm an expert at controlling my anger because I do it infinitely more than you. When incompetent men explain my own area of expertise to me,
It is over.
Put up your sword. You stay here until you figure out how to control your Hulk self.
But ultimately proved right.
basically, I was right and Bruce was wrong.
But don't worry, She-Hulk spent the entire episode humiliating every single man that entered the screen. There's no sign that Rings of Power will do that.
Name thyself. Galadriel, daughter of the Golden House, commander of armies of Gilgalad.
Halbrand.
And don't worry that she never led those armies or was a warrior wearing a sword and armor, or even knew what vinegar was, to be honest.
Galadriel, commander of the Northern Armies.
Nah, that was you, mate.
I half expected you to arrive kicked in mud.
He's obviously heard about the Great Cheeto Catastrophe of 1874.
This time frostbite and troll blood.
Oh, I didn't know they did that flavour.
One thing that was hard for me was that I didn't see myself represented, and this was a pivotal thing for me. I was a huge fan of the films when they came out.
I was a huge fan of the films when they came out. They were an amazing thing to me. They were some of the best films I've ever seen. Oh, I was so disappointed that it wasn't represented. But what I do think you represent is that we can exploit a flawed ideological system in order to gain personal wealth. You make us all so proud. Doesn't sound like it was that big a problem for you, actually, because you love the movies. It's almost like what you enjoyed was the specific creation of Tolkien, the aesthetic look and the appeal of the world he created, rather than just the generic sludge which Rings of Power has been turned into, which isn't Tolkien at all, and is just random fantasy number 5, please, which looks exactly the same as every other random generic fantasy sludge which is created in modern times. Nothing is special anymore, nothing looks unique, nothing looks different because everything looks the same. We can go to Wheel of Time in Eamon's Field, a village which no one's been to in 2,000 years, and it looks exactly the same as Rings of Power and London Airport. Something which is special with a unique look is different. That's varied, that's diverse. When everything looks like anywhere and nowhere specific, everything looks the same. There's nothing to love because it wasn't created to be loved. It's a checklist, a maths equation, an algorithm. That's very different than making something for a specific target audience while still making it available for anyone that wants to watch it. Something which is made for everyone will be cared for by no one.
Galadriel's an immortal elf.
That doesn't represent me.
What is this place?
The westernmost of all mortal realms, the island kingdom of Numenor.
It's Tolkien's Coronation Street. Emmerdale is shaking in their boots at the new competition we've got. How are they supposed to compete with Amazon budgets? No one thought they were going into the soap opera business, but oh boy were those wrong. You've only got to look at the marketing photographs. How is that not a soap opera? They've even got a fan blowing their hair in their face. It's incredible. Hey, when you said you wanted a new marketing team, I never expected you to hire my gran, but this is what we've got, and so I hope you're very happy with it. Just make sure you put the men at the back. We wouldn't want them to get ideas above their station. Now, the Times article itself is largely written like a high schooler who has one paragraph of content and is trying to drag it on for 5 pages. And I can already see a few of you writing comments that I do that with my videos, but there are at least some things in the article which are worth talking about. If that doesn't scream Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, nothing will. I think these were the audition photos for Netflix's Lucifer, but they do say that Amazon has taken a humongous swing bet on us, who might not, from the outside, outside look like the safest bet. Talk about understatement of the year. But that's good, I think. Storytelling is too safe these days. Storytelling is too safe, he says, as he does his casting by numbers. You know what's safe? Following the exact same rules and regulations set by your corporate company, which has created the same repetitive dross for years. Something with no soul that nobody cares about, and is indistinguishable from the next piece of content. You know what would have actually been a risk when it comes to Lord of the Rings? Sticking to the canon, because Tolkien stands for every single thing that modernity despises. That would have been taking a risk. That would have required you to take a stand. But they say we're in a different time now because Thrones aired pre-insurrection, and I don't know what they could possibly mean. Star Trek was from 1998. But it gets particularly weird when they say in the face of House of the Dragon's glossy cynicism and Marvel's winking nihilism, there's a radical sincerity and moral clarity to Lord of the Rings that may resonate with today's beleaguered viewers. Radical sincerity and moral clarity to Lord of the Rings. Yeah, there might have been originally, but do you really think there is for Rings of Power?
The past is dead. We either move forward or we die with it.
The Rings of Power.
Can you even have a radical sincerity and moral clarity if you hate everything you came from, hate your history, hate your heritage, and think it must be actively destroyed so you can fix it, make it look like the modern world, and include everyone in your future utopia? I don't think that's going to include any moral clarity, at least not one that will lead to a positive outcome. But we do get an interesting insight into how Amazon counts active Prime Video subscribers, when he said in 2021, Bezos announced that more than 175 million of Prime's roughly 200 million members had streamed shows and movies on the platform that year. And then they compare it to Netflix, Disney, and HBO Max and Discovery's subscriber count. But when you've got a subscription that most people own just because they want parcels delivered, and you're counting them as an active user of the platform when they've watched one show for an unannounced amount of time once in an entire year. And I mean, with Reacher and Terminalist, I can understand why some people may go and check out various things on the platform once a year. I've watched both of those shows, and I wouldn't count myself as an active user of Amazon Prime Video, let alone if I'd just turned on the streaming service once in 12 months. With that in mind, seem to be massaging those fingers a little bit, eh? Lies, damn lies, and statistics.
The Rings of Power.
But no, we're not trying to mislead people. All Amazon's doing, all their hidden secrecy about everything, you know, flying people off to see 20 minutes of footage and then literally never talking about it again for months, that's not suspicious at all. No, Amazon just doesn't want to spoil the story. During the interviews, many of the actors weren't even told what character they were auditioning for. Production told Cordova he was auditioning to portray an Aragorn type man, which is ironic because Wizards of the Coast took them literally and turned Aragorn into a person he can't physically be. They can say our goal is a modern take on the work of J.R.R. Tolkien, but what you actually mean by that is you're going to take the book, set fire to them, and write something entirely different, because that isn't Aragorn. That actually can't be Aragorn. That's a person who looks entirely different and is entirely different, and by your ideology has entirely different life experiences. One person cannot possibly put themselves in the shoes of someone else. You can't possibly relate to somebody who isn't you. They're an entirely different person with an entirely different culture. Their lived experience is so different that no one can possibly relate. The only thing they can do is shut up, bow down, and get educated by them on what their life was like. And so this Aragorn can't be Aragorn, can he? He'll have an entirely different set of life experiences. He can't possibly understand the struggle that Aragorn went through because he won't have gone through it himself. And none of that is my beliefs, that's just the beliefs that places like Wizards of the Coast subscribe to. And I know logical consistency it's not a principle you hold, it's not something you value. But it is fun to point out hypocrisy all the same. Doing a modern take on Tolkien is like doing a modern take on old fruit. It's rotting, there's maggots in it, and it's started to smell. You can't do a modern take on Tolkien. Tolkien is what it is. It can't be something else. If you start changing it, then it's no longer what it originally was. By altering its component parts, you completely destroy what it was, because it wasn't created in piecemeal in order for you to pick and choose what you liked and change the bits you don't. It was created as a holistic piece of work to be taken and consumed in the way it was presented. It wasn't done by accident. He didn't release it willy-nilly without any thought. If he wanted it done a different way, he would have written it a different way. And the fact that you think you can destroy the work of a deceased author is disgusting, it's repulsive, and you should be ashamed of yourself. But to function in that way would require some kind of sense of values, and it doesn't seem to get it here. The folks at Middle-earth Enterprises take their roles as stewards very seriously. Every decision about the characters franchise has been made with deep reverence to the original. That's why we changed the characters into entirely different people that they never were, because of our deep reverence to the original. With that in mind, together we set out to make a set that follows two guiding principles: variety and originality. Originality on an IP that supposedly you revere. Yeah, I do think this thing's really good, but what I actually want when I have this IP is entirely originality to just make something new. Then why have you got an old IP in the first place if you're making something new? Look, I don't want to say you've got the IQ of a 2-year-old, but come on, dude, you're not giving me much else to work with. Either you don't understand the English language or you're lying. Quite frankly, I'm leaning towards both. Our goal is a modern take on the work, lovingly crafted for a new generation of players and fans. Do you want to know what a new generation of players and fans would have really loved? Lord of the Rings. That's why it's the most read fantasy book of all time. That's why Amazon has spent this much on a series, because it was that valuable an IP. Or at least it was, before they and yourselves started to do work on it. I can actually see the value of the property nosediving in the future. Your work isn't just a neutral thing on the IP, it's a net negative, because there will be those which can separate your work from the original work and they will still love it as much. There will be those who can't separate the piece, and the value of a property largely comes down to perception, it comes down to goodwill, it comes down to the audience base. And if an IP gets a reputation that everything created for this thing fails, because nobody wants anything new, then the value will plummet. And people may have wanted new things in Lord of the Rings originally, but when you take it and you destroy it, when you take it and you treat it like it was wrong, like it was damaged, like it was filth, then that IP will get that reputation, because nobody wants it touched anymore, because nobody will do it justice. No one will give it the respect it deserves. They will want to destroy it, because they think its values and morals were abhorrent. And I think there's one other lesson from this and Amazon. I think that's the Tolkien estate isn't worth anything anymore, because they don't seem to be gatekeeping it anymore, do they? They don't seem to be protecting it in any way. What they seem to be doing is just allowing everything for a quick buck. Now, I don't know the in-depths about all the rights and what actual power they have to stop something like this, but you know what they could do? They could speak out against it. If Christopher Tolkien came out and started speaking about how merchandising was destroying his father's legacy and the only thing he could do was turn his face away, then that is what they could do now. They could actually go, I don't like the way you're disrespecting what Tolkien did. I don't like that you're destroying his world. I don't like that you think that his world was wrong and abhorrent, and that you think you can fix it, so that you think you're better writers and creators than someone who created literally the biggest fantasy IP of all time. The arrogance, the egotism, that not only what he created was wrong, but that every single person that likes that IP is also wrong and horrible and immoral because they liked something that was just old and antiquated and had all of these belief systems that, quite frankly, shouldn't exist now. You're not just insulting Tolkien when you come in and change an IP, when you say that actually we need a new take, a modern take, a more moral take. You're attacking all of the fans of that work as well, the people that liked it as it was. And you may not care about those people, you may think that those people are just disgusting peasants, but those people have money, those people have a built-in audience. Those people are the people that you actually want to buy your product. I'm sure you think you're in the position of power, but you're actually the beggar on the street with your bowl out, hoping that people will give you money. You're not the one deciding what people like. You're the one whose job it is to create what people want. And they don't want a new take. They don't want you to look down on them and what they enjoy and change it because you think you know better. What they want is what they like, the IP that they've read, invested their time into, their energy and their money. And they don't need bigots coming along and preaching to them. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video, subscribe, more videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.